Okay, I want you to picture a scene with me. It's it's almost cinematic.
Hmm.
We're in a small town, ancient Near East. The sun has just set, that
Ugh.
moment where the day's heat finally breaks.
And the shadows get long.
Exactly. And all of a sudden, the streets are just gridlocked. But it's not for a festival, not a market day.
No, it's not a stadium event.
Not at all. It feels like every single person from the entire town is trying to push their way toward one specific, very normal-looking front door.
It's just a house, shoulder-to-shoulder chaos.
Right. And that's the image, that's the scene from the text we're unpacking today. We are doing a deep dive into Mark chapter 1, verse 33. And the whole town gathered at the door.
It sounds so simple on the page, doesn't it? But that one sentence,
Yeah.
it's doing so much work. It's not just a historical note. It's really an investigation into purpose.
Purpose. What do you mean by that?
Well, think about it. Why do we humans gather at all? A birthday party is for celebration. A vigil is for mourning.
A protest is for solidarity.
Right. Every gathering has an unspoken why. And the source material we're looking at argues that when that why gets lost or diluted, the gathering becomes, well, it becomes an empty shell.
So today we're comparing that dusty street in Capernaum to how we gather now.
And I'll just say up front, the contrast is a little uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable is a good word for it. The sources draw a really sharp line. But before we get to the modern stuff, and we're going to spend a lot of time there, we have to set the scene. Why that house on that day?
Context is everything. So we're in Capernaum, Peter and Andrew's house. But the most important detail isn't the where, it's the when. It was the Sabbath.
Okay, which for anyone who is a little rusty, that means everything just stops.
Complete pause. No work, no carrying things. You basically wait. Because earlier that day, something big happened. Jesus was in the synagogue.
And he was teaching with authority, which was new. And then he drives out a demon.
In public. In the middle of the service, so the whole town is buzzing. Then he goes to Peter's house and heals Peter's mother-in-law of a fever.
So you have the public miracle and then the private one that confirms it.
You have proof of concept, but, and this is the key, it's still the Sabbath, the sun is still up. So you have a town full of sick and hurting people who know the answer is right there, in that house. But they can't go. Not yet.
That's an intense image. Just a whole town watching the sun, waiting for it to set so they can legally carry their sick family members down the street.
That's the energy. The second that sun disappears, the dam breaks. And they didn't come to socialize. They came bringing the broken. The crowd's density was pure, unfiltered desperation.
Which brings us right to the core of the analysis, because the door only mattered because of who was behind it.
That's a pivot point. The sources really hammer this home. The crowd wasn't there for the architecture. They weren't there for Peter and Andrew, the hosts.
They weren't there for the vibes.
Not at all. Their singular motivation was Jesus. It was the belief, the hope that he could actually change their reality.
Okay, let's make the turn. Let's bring this to today, because this is where the critique gets sharp. We have to ask, why do we gather?
It's the uncomfortable question. Because in modern spiritual culture, that why has drifted. It's often multifaceted and maybe to a fault. We gather out of habit.
Or for social expectation, or, and let's just be honest, for the production value, the music, the lights, the coffee. And look, I like good coffee. The analysis isn't saying those things are evil, right?
No, not at all. And that's a really important distinction. Community is good. Art is good. But the danger, and the source uses that word danger, is when those things quietly replace the center.
The litmus test.
Exactly. If you took away the great band, the comfy seats, the fog machines, would the room still be full?
If it was just a dusty room with a chance at healing, would we show up?
For them in Capernaum, the answer was a clear yes. For us, maybe not always. And this brings us to what I think is the most profound insight here. The difference between vulnerability and performance.
Yeah, this section really stopped me. In Capernaum, people showed up openly broken.
I mean, just think what that looked like. They're carrying people on mats. They're bringing people who are maybe shouting or catatonic or covered in sores. You don't do that if you're trying to impress your neighbors.
You do that when you have no other options.
Yeah.
They did not pretend to be okay.
Now, contrast that with the typical Sunday morning lobby. We are masters of saying, I'm fine.
It's a culture of concealment. We dress up, not just our bodies, but our emotions. We put on the Sunday best persona, smile, shake hands, say, doing great, when maybe our whole world is falling apart.
It's like we see the gathering as a place to present our finished selves, not the place to bring our unfinished selves. And the sources argue that modern church culture often rewards the performance of health over the reality of healing.
Which is so ironic because the people in Capernaum got help specifically because they admitted they needed it.
That's the spiritual mechanic, right? You can't be healed of a wound you refuse to show. If everyone at that door just pretended they were out for a stroll, nothing would have happened. The power required the vulnerability.
So if you're listening and you feel like you have to put on a mask to go to church, you're actually doing the opposite of the biblical model.
It's supposed to be a triage unit, not a gala.
Triage unit.
Yeah.
That's perfect. And that idea connects right to the next point about leadership. Because if the gathering is a show, then you need a star.
The whole celebrity pastor culture, the source material does not pull its punches here.
Not at all.
I mean, look back at Peter and Andrew. It's their house. They're the leaders, technically. But does the text say anyone was there to hear Andrew give his speech?
Not a word. They're basically invisible.
Because the crowd wasn't there for them. They didn't care about Peter's personality or Andrew's charisma. They cared about the person standing behind them.
But today, we follow the brand. We go to a building because the speaker is funny or famous on social media.
We've entered the era of the TED Talk sermon. And the danger is that the leader becomes the destination instead of being the door. The source argues a leader's only job is to open the door and get out of the way.
It's the difference between being a window and a painting. You look at a painting, but you look through a window.
That's it. If the leader is the painting, they're actually blocking the view. If we're gathering for a personality, we're not at the door anymore. We're at a fan club.
Which is so fragile because people are human. They fail. If your faith is built on a person,
It collapses when they stumble. But if it's built on what's behind the doorman doesn't matter as much. And this brings us to the third big application, agency. The active versus passive gathering.
right. This was really convicting for me. We talk about attending church. It sounds like I attended a movie. I sat, I consumed, I left.
It's a consumer mindset. Entertain me, inspire me. But the crowd in Capernaum was aggressively active. The source points out that they carried the sick.
And let's just pause on that.
Yeah.
Carrying a grown adult is hard work. Doing it through a massive shoving crowd. That is strenuous.
It's a huge amount of agency. They didn't just offer thoughts and prayers. They physically bridged the gap between the person in need and the solution.
So the challenge for us is, who are we carrying?
Exactly. The source calls this out as a fundamental responsibility. It's not enough just to show up and occupy a seat. The gathering requires us to be bringers.
And that's not always literal. It can be an invitation.
It's invitation, it's prayer, it's looking around your life and asking, who do I know who is broken, and how can I help get them to the door? If we're just there to consume for ourselves, we've turned the triage unit into a spa.
Turning the triage unit into a spa. That phrase is going to stick with me. It just changes your whole perspective. It's not what am I getting, it's who am I bringing?
It shifts from consumption to contribution, and all of this, the vulnerability, the leadership, the action, it all comes back to that initial symbol. The door.
Let's talk about that for a second, the symbolism.
The door is access. It's the threshold between the problem and the solution. On one side of the door was the street, dark, sick, broken. On the other side was light, authority, and healing.
And the crucial detail is that the door was open.
It was open. No one was turned away. Jesus met them with compassion. He didn't put up a VIP rope. He met the need right where it was.
And the source's argument is that, theologically, that door is still open.
That's the anchor. Access to that healing hasn't changed. The variable isn't the door. The variable is us. The question isn't whether Jesus is still willing. The question is whether we're still willing to gather at that door.
Or have we drifted to other doors?
Other doors, like success or distraction, or even the door of just being a good person. We gather around things that look right, but they don't have the power to heal the deep stuff.
It really forces you to audit your own motivations.
It does. It boils everything down to that one scene. You strip away all the modern production, and you're left with a desperate crowd, a crushing need, and a door that leads to Jesus.
And if you have those things, you have a gathering. If you don't,
You just have a crowd.
So as we wrap this up, that's really the challenge we want to leave you with. Next time you're in any kind of spiritual gathering, just ask yourself,
Who is actually at the center of this room? And maybe more to the point, why am I here?
am I here to perform or am I here to be healed? Am I hiding my wounds or am I bringing them to the door?
And who am I carrying with me?
That's the work. Thanks for unpacking all this. It's a lot to think about.
The good kind of heavy.
Definitely. We'll see you in the next deep dive.